Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you about through bolts. We're going to discuss what they are, why they break, what happens when they break, and then finally how to fix them. This is a problem that I had on my brand new Lance trailer. I contacted my local Lance dealership and I explained it, and they acted like they'd never heard of this problem before and said, "That sounds terrible, you should bring it in right away." But we're full. So I learned through the Lance forums that this is a rather common problem and it's a do-it-yourself fix. So let's go over it. First off, what are through bolts? Let's go outside and take a look. So here we are on the outside of my trailer, and you'll see all these screws that run from top down to the bottom of my slide out. Now, all of these are screws, and when you get down here to these bottom two, you have to ignore mine because mine have been replaced. But typically, these two bottom bolts would look just like these. Only they're not. These are screws, and even though these will look exactly the same, these are what are referred to as through bolts. And what that means is it's just a really small bolt that goes all the way through to the inside of your trailer, and it's got a nut on the back side. So they call it a through bolt. And typically these bottom two are through bolts, and everything else is a screw. So what happens when these break? What happens is this right here will separate from the trailer. Probably from about clear up here all the way to the bottom, it'll start to pop out. Down here by the bottom I had about maybe an inch, maybe more, a little more than an inch separation. And it just peels this away from the outside of the trailer. So when your slide out is out, that will close up and it'll look just fine. But when you put your slide out all the way in, that's when it will start to separate. And right as your slide out hits this wall here, it'll start to make a really bad noise. And then it'll start to pry that bottom of the slide out. So now that we know what through bolts are, why do they break? The reason is, say this is the outside of your trailer. This is your slide out. This is your slide out in. That's your slide out out. When you put your slide out in on Lance trailers, this thing floats. This whole edge is off the ground. So if you're driving and you hit any big bumps, it's doing this, and it's pushing out and putting a lot of pressure on the outside wall of your trailer where those through bolts are. Maybe somebody sits on this thing while it's closed. Lots of things can attribute to this. But eventually what happens is those bolts will break. That's what happened on my trailer. 3 of my 4 bolts had broken. So what do? You've probably guessed already. The answer is bigger bolts. This is a 1/4 inch by 1 3/4 inch bolt. It's a grade 8 bolt, so it won't break and it won't rust. And you have to swap out the bolts that are in there with something like this. So the first thing you have to do is you have to remove the bolts that are already in it. Sometimes the head will have fallen out already. That happened on more than one of mine. If it's still in there, if you start to unscrew it, it's just going to fall out. That's going to leave you with the remainder still in the wall, and that's the part you have to get out. So what I tried first didn't work, and that was to try to screw through it with a drill bit from the outside of the trailer. What ended up happening was my drill bit broke, and I poked the side of my trailer and made a hole in the outside, so I had to fill that in. So don't do that. What did work for me is I came to the inside of the trailer and I removed the nut on the wall. It looks like a little plastic cap, but it's got a nut inside of it. So you just unscrew that, and then you'll see the end of the bolt poking through. And I took a pair of pliers and I just squeezed it really hard, and I was able to twist it and screw the remainder of the bolt through the wall and into the inside of the trailer. That worked well for me for all 3 of mine. Once you've got it out, you can take drill bits, progressively larger drill bits, and you can open the hole up till you get to the 1/4 inch, and then you can just put one of these things in there and tighten it down. Make sure you put either locking washers on here or have a locking nut. I did the locking washers. I just bought these off of Amazon. Put them in, tighten them up. I did this over a year ago, and I've had no issues since. It hasn't come loose, hasn't caused me any more problems, so I really believe this is a one-time fix kind of deal, which is great. Overall, it took me less than an hour to do. It's a little tricky on the inside to get at the ends of the bolts because they're right up against things on both sides. It's kind of close. But other than that, not a big deal. I read that you can have this work done at the dealership to varying degrees. If your trailer's under warranty, they'll take care of it, or you can pay them to do it, of course. But the bolts they use can have a wide range apparently. Sometimes they just put in the same size bolts that were in there originally that broke, so you can have the same problem again. I didn't read a lot of cases where they actually use big thick bolts like this one. So I just recommend doing it yourself. It's easy enough to do, and if you do it right, you only got to do it once. Alright, well, if you enjoyed this video or you learned anything, please like and subscribe. That would help me a lot. And I hope to talk to you again in the future.